You're welcome back to Breakfast Central. Minimum wage negotiations between the organized labor, the organized private sector, and the federal government ended in a gridlock on Friday as the federal government proposed 62,000 naira up from an initial offer of 57,000 naira though the labor unions are still pushing for a higher amount of 250,000 naira.
The Nigerian Governors Forum stated that if a 60,000 naira minimum wage is adopted, many states would allocate the entire Federal Account Allocation Committee funds to salaries, leaving no resources to develop developmental projects. Now, reacting to this on Saturday, the organized labor faulted the Nigerian Governors Forum's position, saying every part of the new minimum wage agreement should be implemented, and any of the state governors who can't pay it should resign. Joining us this morning is the NLC PRO Lagos State, Ismail Ishola Adejumo. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning for having me on News Central this morning. It's my pleasure to always be here.
All right. Let's first of all start with your response to the Nigerian Governors Forum, asking that anyone who cannot pay it should resign. Don't you think that they have a point? The FAC allocation that they receive every month, if they double what their recurrent expenditure should be, it's going to take a lot, from them. And I mean, the state is almost no longer going to have enough money to do any other thing.
Thank you very much. As much as you know, the facts and figures are the public domain. Everybody is, the facts are available before everybody. And if any governor at this time or the forum of the governors are saying they cannot even implement the initial 60,000 before the government now, the tripartite committee now push it to 62, which is not our own benchmark or expectation from them whatsoever. So I think something is wrong somewhere. And you agree with me that too much is given, much is expected. And I said it earlier on in one of the program that since the subsidy removal has been removed, most of these governors are receiving almost times 10 of their allocation. Some of them, even before the subsidy removal, were paying their wage bill in the range of some states, not generally now, within the range of 5-6 billion. But some of them now, what they receive only as federal allocation, apart from the IGR, is to the tune of almost 25 billion monthly. So how can any governor justify this? They need to come clean and come to the table. They should not run from the negotiation that is ongoing. The tripartite committee, they are part of the committee. They should lay their card on the table, let everybody see, analyze it critically, and vis-a-vis the current inflation rate. Before the removal, we know the inflation rate was not at this astronomical level. So if any governor or the forum of governors are saying this, they are trying to...
Mr. Adejumo, we seem to be struggling with your connection this morning.
And to put down, it's a way of redistributing the wealth to other people, the pepper seller, the market woman, or even the landlord. Everybody will have a bit of this money. Yep. So it's going to trickle down, and it's a way of eradicating poverty. Poverty level in Nigeria.
The idea of it trickling down, just to be clear, when you're talking about it trickling down, we also need to bear in mind that there's also the private sector. It's not just, the public sector, that needs to be affected by this increment. And you also are aware that, many state governors struggle to even pay the 30,000 naira minimum wage when it was moved from 18 to 30,000. So, it might seem like, a completely Herculean task asking that they then pay 60,000 or 100,000 naira minimum wage. We haven't even agreed on what the figure would be.
Thank you very much. Immediately the subsidy was removed, the private employers, the organized private sector, they jack up the price of their services and goods in the market. You know how much a bottle of Coke is sold for now? Even malt and some other goods like that. A tuber of yam now goes for as high as 4,000 naira. A tuber, to the extent that so.
Mr. Adejumo, we seem to have some challenges with the network. Are you still with us?
Yes, I'm very much with you.
All right,
it's only the working class.
Hello? Yes. So it seems that we're having some sort of challenge with the network this morning, but you've shared with us how the organized private sector have jacked up their prices. Are you still there with us?
I'm very much with you.
All
they
right,
have jacked it up initially, and there is need for government to shift ground, and that is why they quickly do what they call wage award to augment that income. It's so stagnant and it's so meager that cannot even buy anything. The purchasing power of a Nigerian worker have been declined.
Okay.
And the inflation has eroded everything. So why are we now going to be productive? How are we now going to be very committed to duty? How are we going to, meet up our own status?
Yeah, how are you going to then handle the conversation about the inflation still getting worse as the numbers are going up with regards to the offer that the government is making to organized labor? It has been said that the organized private sector will, of course, have to see an increase in prices of goods and services. Therefore, an inflation is bound to happen. So what do you make of this, and how do you think that we can, make the best of the impending inflation? Whatever it is now, you're talking about yam being 4,000, it most likely will get worse. So how do we then make the best of the situation that we found ourselves? Right. We are still trying to connect with Ismail Ishola Adejumo, who is the NLC PRO Lagos State Council, and I believe that he's back with us now. Please go ahead.
The organized private sector and the public sector, the government side, knows quite all right that the inflation was not at this rate. And what trickled the inflation high was this policy of subsidy removal and the floating of Naira. So now they have to do something urgently. The labor leadership are not saying per se that it has to be 494. Now we have shifted ground now to 250,000, and the government is offering a patch 2,000 to this is initial 60,000, which is not sustainable. But for their own luxury, it is sustainable for them to use almost 90-something billion for entertainment, the Governors Forum, and even the legislature too. Look at the rate at which they have increased their own budgetary allocation. What are they really calling Nigerians? Some of them are rising up now to lend voice to the call by Nigerian labor leadership that they must do something urgently, because at this point now Nigerians are frustrated, and at the time they will be aggressive. And expectation, frustration, aggression can lead to something.
But do you agree?
But they should not put the workers to the wall. They should do something meaningfully that will sustain an average workers.
Whilst I agree that the policies that were implemented, the subsidy removal, the flotation of the Naira, all of that had an impact on inflation, do you agree that even with the increase in the minimum wage, that there's going to be further inflation?
Definitely there will be inflation, and the government have a lot of measures for controlling inflation.
Do you have an idea what these measures may be? Because so far, it hasn't really been able to control or regulate inflation as much as the average Nigerian would have expected it to be. So how do you foresee the government is going to handle this?
The inflation is at this moment because already the money, the large chunk of the national resources is going to a few hands. It's not properly distributed. It's not evenly distributed. That is why there is this disparity, inequality in society. And there is a great gap, a wide gap between the rich and the downtrodden. Definitely, inflation will be on the high side. Government need to do something to redistribute these national resources to go through the legitimate channel so that people can really, purchasing power of the people can be improved. And inflation will come down a bit. That is the simple logic, simple arithmetics. But at this time now, the huge amount of the national resources is in the hand of the few elite who are the ruling class.
I don't know if it happens just like that.
And some of them have already dollarized this money into foreign currency. So all these measures, both fiscal and monetary policy of government, need to be reviewed. They need to do something concrete to make sure that there is sanity in the monetary and the fiscal policy of government. Because the people who are doing below the change and some other who are into illicit trading are already mopping funds from the economy. And that is why huge amount of money is in the circulation, but it's not reflecting the life of an average Nigerians.
Yeah, I don't know if it happens just like that.
They are sharing trillions every month. Trillions are being shared, which is distributed from the state government to the local government. What are they doing with this money? They are saying
Mr. Adejumo, hold on. Kindly hold on. I don't know if it happens just like that, that once you increase purchasing power, inflation, starts to reduce. Yeah, it may not play out just like that. But I also want to, ask you, you have given the government 5 days before, of course, you would either maybe return back to your strike after it was suspended. Tell us what happens next. If in the next, when the 5 days expires and the government still doesn't give you a figure that the organized labor is comfortable with, do you return back to, your indefinite strike? Or, would there maybe be an extension? That's one. And then another thing is, what do you foresee as, the government's, plan, for, not that one. Another thing is, there's been arguments as to whether labor should redirect its focus from, instead of demanding higher minimum wage, to demanding that the Nigerian government does all it can to reduce the cost of living, to diversify our economy, to improve on crude oil production, and some of all these things. So do you agree that labor maybe should redirect its focus from, instead of fighting for increased minimum wage, to fighting that the government reduces, the cost of living? So if you can address those two things. What happens after your 5 days expires? And then the second question.
Let me take one after the other.
Yep.
The first one is the issue of where do we go from here? In the labor circle, we have hierarchies and organs that, take decisions before government engagement. At this very critical moment, the leadership have already met, they have reviewed, and they have already given a window to Mr. President, who is the commander-in-chief, the CEO of this country, to look at the proposal from the tripartite committee. Because when the negotiation was ongoing, it was the president that called on the Minister of Finance and the coordinating Minister for Economy to quickly work out a template that will show clearly the picture of what the wage bill will look like. And that will give him an insight to say, okay, from this agitation and from what is on ground, we can be able to shift ground from this point A to point B or point C. And the leadership so much believe in the president being an activist. They've reposed some confidence in him that he will do the needful at this very critical time in our nation to ensure that at least the workers who he has already promised that they will have a living wage, we have something close to living wage, if not living wage. Because at this time, nobody can survive with that. And it is that window that we have now. The moment the president makes his final pronouncement, the leadership will meet again and analyze and take decision as to the way forward. As to the area of the diversification of the economy, that we should look inward instead of the continuous agitation for minimum wage. Before now, we have been trying to match government policy to policy in terms of this tax regime. When the issue of electricity tariff was introduced, we staged a protest and we call on Nigerians to join us. Even as part of our demand now, it's still one of the cardinal demand that increase in tariffs should be reviewed downward, because that one will affect everybody, both the working class and not working class. The people who are in the small businesses, how can they survive? How much electricity will you use? Even petrol, which is the alternative source of power, is not affordable. Some are selling now as a rate of 850, 900 in some places, even 1,000, as the case may be. So we urge government to reduce this tax policy, which will cripple, the purchasing power of Nigerians. And at the same time, diversify, as you have said. This issue of diversification, I don't think is something that we need to be agitating for again. Government knows quite all right that they need to diversify into the critical sector of the economy by investing heavily in agriculture, provide security for farmers in the rural so that they can produce foods that will come to the urban, that will reduce this inflation. If that is not done, then we are in for serious mess. And at the same time, government should also look at to block the loopholes in the public sector. We have some of
but these things are not being mentioned in any of the conversations Labour is having.
It is part of our demand. When we issue a communique, there is what we call extract from the communique. That is what you press always dwell on. But the full demand analysis of our agitation and in our communique. And I can tell you point blank that before now we have been telling them that they need to look inward into the area of the economy. The micro and the macroeconomic policy must be rejigged. And the people at the ends of the affair in this economy management, they are one of the best brains we have in Nigeria, but we don't know why we are here today, where people cannot survive. So they need to invest into area of agriculture critically. It's very important. Then small and medium businesses, MSMEs, they need to also do something to assist them so that businesses can strive. Then if taxes are reduced, then businesses will strive. This tax is too much. It's killing businesses. And that is why the organized labor is also telling government to block the loopholes and reduce the cost of governance. How much they are spending on the legislature and the executive and judicial arms of government is far outrageous. And it's telling on the economy.
Will you be disappointed? You know, I mean, I know you've described Mr. President as an activist, and you trust, you know, that he would act accordingly. Will you be disappointed, you know, if the president doesn't, you know, go further than 62,000, or even, you know, consider your demands?
Actually, I will still say it categorically that we'll give Mr. President benefit of doubt.
I know, but
as our father, the father of the nation.
If he doesn't,
I will not stand there and preempt him.
Okay.
I will rather.
No, it's not preempting him. It's how you would feel. I'm asking how you would feel if he doesn't. Would you be disappointed in the president?
Actually, what will bring disappointment is when Mr. President did not shift ground as much as we expected, because we have a threshold, we have a benchmark we are looking at, and he also understands with us that for workers to survive in Nigeria is nothing close to what the tripartite committee is proposing at this moment. He knows quite all right, and Mr. President is somebody that is passionate about Nigerians, and his antecedent can attest to this fact that he has been there when he was the governor in Lagos. He ran a progressive government, and at this time at the federal level, we want him to take the plight of workers very seriously, because we are the engine room of government. And if there is going to be any progress in governance, the working class, the workers must be well taken care of. And I know the president will not disappoint Nigerians and the workers.
All right.
On this issue.
I want us to go back very quickly to the strike that happened on Monday last week. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, had referred to that strike or the action taken by the organized labor as economic sabotage and a treasonable felony. I want to find out your reactions to that, and also because if things don't go as planned and we have to see another strike, are we expecting to see another shutdown of the national grid? Are we expecting to see the shutdown of the airports as well, seeing that this is being referred to as treasonable felony and economic sabotage?
Thank you very much. Economic sabotage or treasonable felony is what we tag our action as. But the labor movement does not enjoy going on strike. As you could see right now, you can observe that we are being very, very tolerant. We are being magnanimous. We are very, very patriotic about this country. We are partner in progress. No workers, no leadership of the labor movement will allow Nigeria to crumble on the basis of agitation for increased wage or any other condition of service. But be that as it may, it does not mean that the leadership should abuse or underrate the collective resolve of Nigerian workers. Because when the workers are united, they can never be defeated. Even when you observe when we withdraw our service across the nation, you see what happened. We know what it means in terms of economic backwardness. The Nigerian nation lose nothing less than almost 50 billion on that day, if not more. For just that single day. That will amount to using it to do something productive in the economy.
So do you think that if Labour had an opportunity to do things differently, do you think that Labour would have done it differently or told the same path?
The only part we are going to tread now is to ensure that we do more of constructive engagement with the government. We have put our card on the table. Indices, parameters, and statistics are on the table to justify what we are demanding for. Before now, government have not given us a breakdown of what makes up that 62,000 as minimum wage. The breakdown they give is not justifiable. And as for those who are calling on a treasonable felony, let them arrest all Nigerians and the workers and lock up in the cell.
Does constructive engagement
are not robots. The people who are working in all the critical sector are not robots. They are human beings.
Does constructive engagement mean that if the government doesn't move further than 60,000 or 62,000, that Labour will, maybe find reasons to not go on strike? They will continue the engagement, they will continue deliberating with the government.
The The last instrument we have in the labor force is strike action. Before we embark on strike, we give notice, we give ultimatum, we do protest, we use all sorts of instruments. But the last resort is the strike action, which we don't enjoy in any form. You can trace the history. Oftentimes they'll say before 12 midnight, labor will call it up. When there are genuine reasons why we should not put our economy in a very shaking ground, we have to compromise at times to let things move. But now that they are trying to strangulate us, to make us suffocate, honestly, I don't know. The last result will be determined by the leadership, because I'm here as the spokesperson for the state. I am not to determine what next line of action will be taken by the leadership. As soon as they take action, we comply totally 100%.
Ismail Ishola Adejumo, the NLC PRO Lagos State Council, thank you very much for your time with us this morning.
It's my pleasure always to be with you on News Central.